So today I'm back with another reaction about Canada and really enjoying making content about Canada, making reactions, learning so much more about this awesome country. I've already made videos on the geography, history, some beautiful places in Canada. Every time I make a video about it, it just makes me want to make more and learn more and more. And I'm really enjoying the interaction with people in the comments, so thank you so much for your comments, and I'm really learning a lot from those too. So keep commenting, telling me more about Canada, telling me interesting things, recommending other videos as well. I'll try and get to them also. And today we're going to be checking out this one. It's called the Top 10 Things Canadians Want You to Know. So I don't know, I thought that was quite an interesting title for a video, like what things would Canadians want people to know? Tell me in the comments what things you would like people outside of Canada to know about Canada. But let's check this out and see.
Everyone's favorite friendly country has some fun facts to share. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things Canadians want you to know. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking to clarify Canadian stereotypes, correct misconceptions, or generally gush about things that we think you should know about this North American country.
And tell me what you think about Canadian stereotypes. But obviously I'm from the UK, so I don't really know too much. I don't know, for some reason we just get bombarded. It's more like US history and US culture. Canadian culture, for some reason, we don't really get exposed to as much, unfortunately, which is a shame because everything I've learned so far, it's really been enjoyable and interesting. Things like Canadians being friendly, like I think she mentioned at the start, that is one thing. I think that's more from American culture we learn that. I guess our exposure is through American TV and things, how they talk about Canadians, so it's a bit of a skewed viewpoint. But tell me what you think about Canadian stereotypes.
I'm Canadian.
Number 10. It's not winter all the time. When many people think of Canada, they picture blizzards and polar bears. And don't forget the stereotype that all Canadians live in igloos.
My good friend Nantuck and I would build an igloo to protect ourselves from polar bears and flying hockey pucks.
While it's true that Canadian winters can be intense and long, Canada does warm up during the summer months. Igloos would be pretty useless.
There are many ways to describe the summer of 2012. Hot, dry, extreme. But if you're feeling the burn, consider it a unifying Canadian experience.
Like in many other countries, Canadian seasons are varied and unique. Visit in the summer or fall, and you'll be surprised at just how warm it can get, especially in the southern part of the country. Though one thing is certainly true. Visiting Montreal in the winter can get a little slippery. Number 9.
Yeah, so tell me what you think about that. That is, I guess, a stereotype that Canada's very cold, covered in snow all the time. When I seen those temperatures there, when I noticed it was getting up to like 30 degrees Celsius, I honestly didn't know it was that hot. I knew it would probably get hotter during the summer months and stuff like that. But for me, tell me what you think actually. If you're from Canada, what do you think about the cold weather, the warm weather? What do you prefer? Do you have a preference? Obviously, I'm from Scotland, so I'm used to just, it's not even, it's cold and grey, but it's more just depressing, and it's just like, it's not freezing cold, but it's like this just horrible weather, man. That's why now I live in Malaysia, where it's 32 degrees Celsius every day of the year, pretty much the same. You can just like, you don't have to worry about thinking too much about the weather. Sometimes it's a rainy season, it can get a bit crazy, but it's pretty much settled throughout the year. It's super warm, and I love that. Even though I'm like very fair skinned and Scottish, I acclimatise and I really enjoy the weather here now. But if you're from Canada, do you just appreciate the cold weather, or do you ever get this like feeling that you just want to move somewhere hot and stay there? But for me, as much as I love the hot weather now, I do kind of miss the seasons and the snowy weather. I miss the snow.
Toronto is not the capital of the country. While there is a
Ottawa,
joke that they
is it?
like to consider themselves the center of the universe, contrary to popular belief, Toronto is not the capital of Canada.
So, you guys doing anything fun while you're in town?
Fun. In Toronto.
It is, however,
No, is there nothing fun to do in Toronto? Tell me more about Toronto. I had a friend when I lived in Scotland. He was from Toronto, and he was like a really cool guy. Really liked his ice hockey. He was a big Maple Leafs fan, and we used to talk a lot about that. But I don't know too much about what there is to do in Toronto. I thought it was quite a cosmopolitan, modern city with, I would imagine, a lot to do, but maybe not.
the largest city in Canada by population and the fourth largest in North America, just above Chicago. The title of Canadian capital goes to the much smaller and quieter Ottawa,
How did we end up with
Ottawa, that's
Ottawa?
what I thought.
So it is the capital of Canada.
a lovely city dedicated mainly to being the center of government. Much like Washington, D.C., Ottawa often gets mocked for being boring.
Suburban Ottawa's great. It has everything Brooklyn does.
Really?
Yes! Other than my job and my friends and my family, you, interesting people, museums, restaurants.
While not as exciting as Toronto, perhaps, Ottawa
Oh, again, I think I mentioned on a previous video, I found it difficult to work out whether this was like from the French side of culture or British, because these sort of buildings are very common in Scotland and France, or in the UK and France. Like in Scotland, we have big buildings like this that are like things like universities and stuff. I love this sort of gothic, old architecture. It looks like, even though they're really decent Ottawa a bit there, it looks like an interesting place just to walk around and just have a nice chill time.
Ottawa's charms are still not to be missed.
Ottawa, the Paris of Central Canada.
Number 8, a Canadian
Yeah, so I knew Ottawa was the capital just from those previous videos, but tell me more about Ottawa. If you're from Ottawa, what's good to do there? And if you're from outside Ottawa, what's your perception of Ottawa as a city?
Paris of Central Canada.
Number 8, a Canadian invented basketball.
Really?
Believe it or not, it was the Canadian James Naismith, a McGill University graduate, who invented this popular sport back in 1891. Naismith was a phys ed teacher at the YMCA International Training School in Springfield, Massachusetts. He struggled with a class of students who were disobedient and short-tempered due to being stuck inside all day thanks to a harsh winter. He resolved to create an indoor game to keep the students distracted and that would help them stay in shape. The end result was basketball.
100 years after James Naismith from Almont, Ontario invented it, basketball was being played by hundreds of millions of people around the world.
Number
That's great to know. Like, that's something I never had a clue about. For some reason, I would have just expected it to be from the USA, or from an American that invented it, but to know that it was a Canadian that actually invented basketball is like fantastic. Is that something that's very well known throughout Canada? Even in the US, do you think people from the USA know that basketball was invented by a Canadian? But yeah, and I guess these days there's still like some good Canadian basketball teams, is that right? Tell me how Canadian basketball teams compare.
7, Canadian bacon is just ham.
There's bacon. Canadian bacon.
Yep, that's right. The term Canadian bacon is actually one made up by Americans. In Canada, it's known as back bacon, which is a far more accurate term, but really it's just ham. Just look at it. Does that really look like bacon? No.
Yeah, I thought back bacon was like when you get a rasher of bacon, it was like the fat part of the bacon. I didn't know it was just ham. Maybe a different
Canada agrees.
meanings.
If ham's Canadian bacon, then what the hell do you call bacon?
Canadians take their bacon seriously, and as such, the fact that Canada's come to be associated with this term borders on being offensive to the Canadian culinary world. In all seriousness, real Canadian bacon is excellent if you live south of the border.
Ooh, that
So
was
if you
good.
want a real taste of Canadian bacon, you'll just have to make the trip. We highly recommend the maple glazed variety.
No, you gave me Canadian bacon instead of bacon. This misdeed cannot go unpunished.
Number 6.
That's I mean, I think I said on a previous video how much I love maple syrup. The fact that bacon is so synonymous with Canada as well makes me like want to go there even more. Like bacon and maple syrup, two of my favourite things to eat. And when they talk about combining them, that actually just sounds amazing. I know you get like bacon sometimes on things like French toast or on pancakes and stuff. How often do you eat that when you're in Canada? Like syrup and bacon, are they like things you eat a lot, or is it more things that are like exported and are popular abroad and things like that? I would imagine if I lived in Canada, I'd pretty much live in a diet of bacon and maple syrup as well, man. Tim Hortons, I've never actually been to a Tim Hortons. They don't have that here in Malaysia. I think they just recently got it in the UK the last couple
Tim
years.
Hortons isn't our only national coffee chain. Sure, when you're in the mood for a quick double-double or a box of Timbits, Timmy's is a great place to stop.
Thanks for the free
They're
donuts.
just donuts, okay? They're like 2 for a loony.
But it's not Canada's only coffee chain, or even its best. Second Cup is another of Canada's national coffee chains, and some would argue it's much better.
That looks quite
albeit
nice and
typically
quite
more
fancy.
expensive.
Is that your second cup of coffee?
Third. Why?
You could also try Montreal-based Van Hoot, which has cafes across the province of Quebec. While competitive pricing, amazing marketing campaigns, and its place in pop culture has made Tim Hortons the reigning champ, you still got options. Plus, we even have Starbucks.
Oh, this coffee is excellent.
Number 5.
And how is the coffee culture in Canada? Because having such a French, like a strong French presence or population, obviously in France, coffee is so important to culture there, and like they do coffee really well. Is that translated into Canada? Like, is the coffee culture very good? Do you get high quality coffee there? And what's your favourite coffee shop from all of those ones as well?
5. We have 2 official languages.
My friend in Canada who got married way too young, they had to do their vows twice, once in French.
They speak French there too? God, that place is a mess.
The history of Canada is shaped
thought
by both
everybody
the
knew
English
that.
and the French, with the two both laying claim to parts of the land until the 7 Years' War, at the end of which France ceded its colony to the English. Thanks to the policies of official bilingualism enacted in the 20th century, both languages are protected and represented today.
If it's Canada, just say the word. And then say it again in French.
These policies ensure that citizens can be served by the federal government in both languages, and politicians seeking to lead the country typically learn both French and English.
Leadership is about bringing people of all different perspectives together. Je veux aussi rendre hommage à Thomas Mulcair.
While most of the francophone population lives in Quebec, there are many French-speaking communities across Canada, including a large one in New Brunswick.
Au Québec, on travaille en français. Fine. That leaves the rest of Canada under my jurisdiction, with the possible exception of some areas of New Brunswick.
Number 4.
I like that as well. That's very interesting, and it makes Canada quite unique. I don't know many other countries where there's such a big population who speak another language, and it's quite like almost separate, but they both combine as well. Like it's quite coincidental that I live in Malaysia, and it's actually similar here, where it's actually more languages here. They have English, Malay, Indian, and Chinese, because there's huge populations of Indian and Chinese people. They combined, they probably make up about 30% of the Malaysian population, along with the Malay people who are like the sort of, we can say, I don't know, like say like the normal population or the original people of Malaysia. So it's just coincidental. This is a country that is very diverse as well, with language and everything else that goes along with that, culture and sort of thing. But I love that about Canada. Do you think it's worth me making like French subtitles for my videos as well? Tell me in the comments.
Canada is pretty progressive. Compared to our neighbors, it often seems like Canada is lauded for being a progressive paradise.
When I think about Canada, I actually think of progressive.
While it has its own share of social problems and debates, it is true that most of the fights on social issues that take such precedence in the American media have been solved in Canada. This is due in large part to stark differences between Canadian and American culture. Access to abortion is almost a non-issue. Gay marriage has been legal since 2005, and even the Conservative Party doesn't oppose it.
You know, the strongest evidence for genuinely demonstrating a domestic partnership is to take a quick drive on up to Canada and legitimize your relationship.
Legitimize?
Get married.
There are still many problems in Canada, and it's by no means a progressive utopia. But the country should be proud of all the progress it's already made.
We should move to Canada.
Number 3.
I like that as well, actually. I like it. I guess for me, like, I don't really have any sort of political affiliation. I don't really take politics that serious, where I I'm too entrenched in one view or the other. I just kind of go with the flow, and when it comes to like elections and things, I'll just pick whoever the best party are, who've got the most competent politicians, and who have got the best vision for the country if I'm living in the UK. But when it comes to like social issues and things, I just want everybody to be happy and just be like open and let people kind of do what they want. So it's like, I kind of like that Canada's so progressive. I think that's fair. Just treat people as well as you can and make everybody happy. Tell me what you think about that if you're from Canada. What sort of issues does that cause, if any, in Canada? Do you agree that it's good to be so progressive and so open? And yeah, like what bad things can it actually bring, if any, to the country?
Not all police officers are Mounties. Those officers dressed in red suits and great big hats
Mounties are so
members of
iconic as well.
RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Your cops are called Mounties.
While Canada does indeed use Mounties on the federal level, cities and municipalities use regular police officers, as they do in most countries. Mounties enforce federal laws and will work closely with the provinces and municipalities in order to accomplish their goals. And their tasks include dealing with organized...
Due South, I used to watch that, man. I've actually not thought about that show for so long. It was about the Mountie, and then he had his like sidekick guy, his partner. There was like always some like things going on between them, and they're trying to like solve crimes and stuff. That is something that's been at the back of my mind somewhere. I've not thought about in probably years. It must be decades now, man. Tell me if you used to watch that. What a show.
Crime, drug trafficking,
when I was a child, I watched that.
Among many other federal offenses. So, yes, Canada does have Mounties, but no, they don't go around solving crimes on horseback. And the country does rely heavily on municipal police forces as well. Also, Mounties don't always dress like that either.
Oh, Canada.
It's an iconic uniform.
Our home.
Really like regal.
Number 2, healthcare isn't free. It's paid for by taxes.
Dad, no, it says don't walk.
Doesn't matter. They have free health care. Whoa, I'm rich!
Often when talking about the great things in Canada, free healthcare is brought up. But that term is a bit of a mischaracterization. Healthcare in Canada isn't somehow free. That'd make no sense. It's just paid for by taxpayer dollars. Because access to universal healthcare services is considered a right in Canada.
Canada? What, is everyone going to have access to universal health care so no one has to choose between going bankrupt and treating a life-threatening illness?
While some arguments persist about the best way to design and maintain a program of universal healthcare, and there are still complaints that Canada's system lags behind those in European countries, the large majority of Canadians agree that it's been incredibly beneficial, and that healthcare is a great use of tax money.
Here's the healthcare.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick.
Yeah, I've got to say, I like that. I'm from the UK. We have the NHS, and it's pretty much free as well. I guess that comes through paying through tax and stuff as well, and just gives some great peace of mind. But the thing that's interesting about it being free in Canada, or having to pay through taxes, is because it borders the US, and obviously the US healthcare is such a the healthcare system is such a divisive issue in America. It's something that's so causes so much problems for people in America, and bordering Canada, two great countries bordering each other with such disparate policies on healthcare. It's quite crazy the difference. And yeah, maybe I'll watch a video on the difference and get a bit more in depth on the differences between those two healthcare systems. But tell me, as a Canadian, do you appreciate the Canadian healthcare system? How do you find it? They said they think maybe not as good as the European ones. Is it good enough for you?
Here are some honorable mentions.
Real maple syrup. I hate that faco kind.
What's the bad about being Canadian?
Your milk comes in bags.
So yeah, apparently ketchup is so hot in Canada that they just threw the artificial flavoring all over the
ketchup flavored chips are so good. They get them here in Malaysia.
Has that stereotypical accent.
There's not going to be any fight without Scott Riles and the incredibly polite Canadian news team.
Yeah! Sorry about that, eh? While the accent does exist, it's more common in rural areas. And even then, people in the Maritimes and Newfoundland have their own distinct accent.
They sometimes have a funny way of saying things like a boot.
And the way they say about.
which sounds like
in
what's
Scotland
that?
we say a boot as
The
well.
majority of Canadians
Or
you meet, who will likely
that.
be from the big cities, don't talk with that accent. In fact, they sound very similar to Americans from big cities.
You got a weird thing for Canadian melodrama.
What a weird thing for girls who say a boot.
We will concede that Canadians do say the word a lot, but it's often misused by those mocking Canada.
I moved here from Canada and they think I'm slow, eh?
A is another way of saying right or, you know, at the end of a sentence. Not a random word we just interject in the middle of conversations. Bet you learned something new today, eh?
Come on, what do we look like? Rookies? Sorry.
Okay, that was really good, man. I love that again, just to find out so much more about Canada. All of those were very interesting and just reinforces why Canada is such an awesome country, man. I really like all of those things, whether it's from things like the bacon and syrup to the great healthcare system. On the accent, it's very funny because like I seen people write in the comments about saying the word about, and then I know that in Canada sometimes they say that Canadians say like a boot, but like that's actually the way we say it in Glasgow. Is Glasgow colloquial dialect. We say a boot, like when we're saying we're going to like throw that a boot or something, like, you know what I mean. But it's very similar, like that we have this, even though we're so far away in countries, that we have a similar quirk of language. But I like that, and yeah, love, as of before, loving everything I'm finding out about Canada. Can't wait to find out more. Tell me what you think about all of them. Are there things that Canadians want other people in other countries to know? And tell me some interesting stuff about Canada. Thanks.